I've been struck powerfully by the representations that constituents have made to me and others who have experienced a great deal of suffering amongst their loved ones, and they wanted me to vote for this legislation. And I'm sorry that I can't do what they want me to do, but I feel it's wrong in principle to go down this route, and that's why I'll vote against it on Tuesday. I can't separate myself from my own judgments. I'm a man of faith. I believe that we are all individually created in the likeness of God and created equal in the likeness of God. And I obviously have a family perspective on this. My wife has a terminal condition, and that is something we live with. And I can't for a moment suggest that these factors, these real factors, have had no impact on the decision I've arrived at.
Well, that's good to hear, isn't it? We're all created equal in the likeness of God. I agree, so well done for saying that, John. And the other thing I like about what John Swinney says here is it says he opposes assisted dying in principle. I like that. So he's not saying this is a matter of how it works out in practice. Just in principle, this is wrong. And I agree with him. How do I decide what things are wrong? Reason, revelation, intuition. And on assisted dying, then they all line up for me and they all communicate to me, bring it to my mind that this is just something that is morally wrong. And I think it's okay to bring that into politics. Sometimes there's a feeling that you shouldn't really bring pure morality into politics. It's just to do with how will it work out, what consequences will it have. But I disagree. The ends don't justify the means. The state should not act in an immoral manner. So in terms of consequences, consequentialist approach, what does assisted suicide lead to? Well, it leads to some people feeling a duty to die. You get the Werther effect, where people hear about suicide, there are more suicides, and that leads to there being even more, not ones in a medical context, but generally. And there's very strong evidence from around the world that that is indeed what happens. So that's costing lives. It results in some lives being devalued, etc. So the consequences of assisted dying are grave. But even without those, we can take a deontological approach, to use the technical term, where it's not to do with the consequences, it's just to do with this thing is wrong. It's violating fundamental principles about the value of every human life. So, I agree with John there. Right, I'm going to talk about another issue now with regards to assisted suicide. I think it's generally based on the assumption that there's no afterlife. So someone's in pain, and the assumption is we're offering you the opportunity to end your own life, and that will then end your suffering because just the lights go out. You'll be free from your suffering. It will be all over. You will have no conscious existence from then on, and that's the deal. That's the assumption behind it. But I think most people in society don't share that assumption. I was with Phil Holden down in the Meadows in Edinburgh 2 days ago, and Phil was asking people if they believed in the afterlife. A lot of them were students, and a very substantial majority were saying yes. I mean, a few don't know, but not many know I don't believe there's an afterlife. So most people don't share this assumption. So if you're offering someone assisted dying, offering them the poison to take, if you like, okay, they believe they're going to leave this earthly suffering, but then what comes next? Judgment? A better life? A worse experience? Well, these are very important questions. So I think the act of offering assisted dying to someone, it embodies materialistic assumptions that death is the end. I mean, if you imagine in a hospital, if there was a terminally ill patient and a medical practitioner would say to them, "Can I talk to you about your soul and your eternal destiny?" They'd probably lose their job. But it might be the case soon that they'll be saying, "Would you like to have an assisted dying? Would you like the poison to take?" And well, that will be seen as okay. Now, someone could respond and saying, "Would you like to speak to the chaplain?" Maybe that covers like the eternal destiny side of it. But I think it's an interesting question that I haven't heard raised until recently. But previously, in many decades gone by, the assumption in healthcare, if someone's nearing the end of their life, would be to help them to prepare for the afterlife, to prepare to meet God. That would be the spiritual issue. Whereas with assisted dying, the assumption is that this is just someone who's going to cease to exist and there will be no further conscious existence. There's a lot more to think and say about that, but I just raise it there in a preliminary way. I think that's an interesting question to mull over. And finally, let's go back to John Swinney. So he thinks all humans are created equal in the likeness of God. Now, assume John Swinney must believe that this creation event takes place at the point of birth. So the unborn child in the womb is not created equal in the likeness of God, but when that child passes into the outside world, they suddenly become created equal in the likeness of God. So if that baby had been born a day earlier, it would have been created equal in the likeness of God a day earlier. If it was born a day later, it wouldn't have been created equal in the likeness of God until a day later. I mean, this is obviously nonsense, isn't it? It doesn't possibly make sense. So what I'm getting at here, obviously, is how can John Swinney possibly be pro-abortion while saying that human lives are created equal in the likeness of God? The whole premise of abortion, as we understand it in our society, is that unwanted human lives don't matter. So from John Swinney, this is a blatant contradiction. I would love to challenge him on it myself. I would love to hear him challenged on it. Someone really try and pin him down. Will it happen? No. He's not exactly going to go on an interview with the BBC, and the BBC journalist is really going to try and pin him down on why he's not against abortion, why he's not pro-life. That's really not going to happen, is it? Is it going to happen in the Parliament? No. So in a sense, he'll get away with saying that. He'll get away with putting forward something that reveals a blatant contradiction in his set of views, and he will get away with it in the sense that he won't be pinned down to have to account for that. Now, I think when it comes to assisted suicide, it can be a field day for Christian politicians, because you can really talk Christian language, you can appeal to Christian voters, and you can do that absolutely explicitly and powerfully without being a something phobe. Assisted suicide isn't an issue where there's one socially acceptable side and the other side is not socially acceptable. You can take either position and still be seen as some mainstream politician. So it's a safe issue to speak out on. So Christian politicians in particular, as I say, they'll have a field day. They'll see this as a great opportunity to really speak powerfully from the perspective of their faith on an issue where there's really nothing to lose for them. So when it comes to abortion, though, these lives created equal in the likeness of God, it's a bit too controversial to defend those lives, so a lot of the Christian politicians won't go there. In fact, they will say the opposite. And actually, on reflection, which is worse? Which is a more serious issue, abortion or assisted suicide? Well, I think with assisted suicide, the person dying bears some responsibility for their own death, whereas with abortion, the victim is totally innocent. Also, looking at the scale, the number of lives lost to abortion will be orders of magnitude higher than the numbers lost to assisted dying. So I think abortion is a much more grave issue. I think what tends to happen in politics, though, and in public debate, is what I call currency bias. And the focus tends to go on the latest thing in the Parliament. What bill's going through the Parliament, that's the thing we need to be really focusing on. That's where we need to be fighting. Whereas I think sometimes we need to take a step back and say, well, they may be talking about that, but we need to focus on the gravest, most serious issues. And so we're going to take the initiative and bring up these other issues instead. So how will it go in the Scottish Parliament on Tuesday next week? I really don't know. Some politicians have stated their position, but not that many. I would fear that the succession of sad stories that we'll hear in the debate in the Parliament will sway a lot of MSPs, because that's the way they're wired up. That's the way they're used to approaching issues, from a sort of empathic point of view, rather than a sort of logical, think it through, the principles, the consequences. So I would fear that that will carry the day. As far as the electorate's concerned, it's as though the electorate's played Russian roulette on this issue. They've elected a batch of politicians, a batch of parties. Okay, the Greens and the Lib Dems are pro-assisted suicide as a matter of policy. But most of the parties in the Parliament, they don't have a policy. Most of the MSPs elected, people didn't really know what they thought about the issue. The MSPs themselves didn't know what they thought about the issue, and they're going to vote. So it's a bit of a random process, isn't it? Voting in people and then just hoping it works out and they vote the right way. Will they vote the right way? Maybe they will. If they do, I would be very confident it will be by a narrower margin than it was last time. So in other words, the trend will be towards introducing assisted dying. If it doesn't happen this time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time, on current trends, it appears to be that that's what will happen eventually. So obviously as a family party, we say it's important that people vote for a party that's going to oppose this as a matter of principle. And if it is introduced, which party will say they're going to repeal it? Certainly not the Conservatives, certainly not Reform, whereas we will be saying we're going to go back and repeal this. It was wrong. It needs changing. Will John Swinney try and repeal it at any point if it goes through? No, because it will be seen as water under the bridge, whereas the family party are a party of principle, and we will always try and put right things that are wrong. So the vote in the Parliament is on Tuesday next week, 13th of May. We're going to be there between 11 and 3 with some placards. There'll be some press photographers, I guess. We might get some media attention. It's not a demonstration with speeches in particular, but do come and join us. Part of it will be, sitting in the sunshine with a coffee, holding our placards, seeing if we get some journalists coming over. And there'll be other campaigners there as well, so do come and join us if you would like to. And do like and subscribe to our channel, and thanks for watching.